Say What They Can't radio.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Welcome once again to a live broadcast of Radio 1WorldFestGlobal, where we come to you on the last Sunday of every month from 1 to 2 p.m., broadcasting live from the beautiful We Say What They Can't studios in downtown Brooklyn, New York City. We're here today with a show on Black History Makers. We have a great lineup of guests who are joining us. I even have a new co-host that's joining us for the first time, and we're going to be introducing her soon. My name is Kamel Ellis of One World Fest Global. I'm happy to have y'all here today joining us for this special February show. As we get into the Black History Makers show, we want to really talk about why we decided to call the show Black History Makers. It's Black History Month. And the people that make history in our community, a lot of times what we do in history is great because if we look back in history, it tells us where we came from, and that helps us to know where we're going. At the same time, when you look around today, there are a lot of people doing some great work in our schools, in our communities, in the financial industry, and we like to acknowledge them because they're the ones who are making history today that our children are going to be looking back saying these people were trailblazers in their particular industries, in their professional endeavors. So we like to talk to the people who are here with us now, making history in our time. So that's hashtag Black History Makers, right? So I want to welcome everybody today. First, I want to welcome my co-host. Let's say hello to Ms. Nefertaria Jones. She's our Vice President of Administration and Marketing for One World Fest Global. Good morning, Nef.
Good afternoon. We were talking about this from the morning time, but we're in the afternoon, One World Fest. Thank you for coming. We have some very great guests today. First off, I would like to introduce our guests. To my right, we have Ms. Jennifer Figueroa. She's a counselor at New Heights Middle School.
School counselor.
And I just want to start off with, my journey, and, we are all history makers right now. What we are doing today, as people in a climate we're living in, but all our really history comes from education, so we all have to, just thank our principals and thank our teachers. They were our first parents outside of home. The alma mater actually stands for nurturing mother. So when we went to our schools, we were nurtured by people, and you guys are on this panel today, and we want to thank you, and thank you for being the makers and putting a hand in our future. So we'll go around. We have the Honorable Dr. Andrews.
How are you? Thank you for having
Andrews,
me.
yes, he's the district leader of Queens, also York College.
Yes, an
Professor
administrator and an associate professor at York College.
Yes. And I will also move right to his left, and that goes to Miss Sandusky. She is president of New Heights Middle Schools, and that is the principal. Sorry, not president, but not president yet. Not president yet. She gonna be president of something. Principal of New Heights. I spoke wrong. Right. Principal of New Heights, and that's the Mahalia Jackson School. All our schools in our neighborhood have been named after distinguished people who have made history, and now we have people coming into our schools to make history. And finally, to her right, we have our guest host. She is also a member of the One World team. She's also on the board. And her name is Shireen, but I was going to give it the whole full government. But she's Shireen. She's also a host on other radio stations. So I have a pleasure to have you here and help us today. And I'll turn over the mic to you, Shireen.
Okay, well, good afternoon, and I'm excited to be here. I want to thank Kamel and my One World Fest team for having me today. It's been a minute since I've been on the air. I had my own radio show, but I'm excited today because when I got the call, I didn't know who were going to be our guests. So when I found out these guests were actually, Mrs. Sandusky is from the district that I went to school in, District 17, right here in Crown Heights, Brooklyn. I was very excited to see that, and yes, you're correct. Our first parents outside of the school are our teachers, and I have some amazing teachers. I can remember every teacher from elementary school and middle school, so I'm excited to be on this be here today, just to sit next to you and be excited
Thank
that
you.
my school district got a sister as a principal.
Yes.
And
To your
I didn't
point,
go to
using the
Mahalia
sign.
Jackson, which we know as IS 391. I
Right.
went to Atwell Intermediate School, which is IS 61. It was also called Lefferts. That's where I went to school at, right across from the 7-1 precinct. So that's my background in history. But this is where I went to school and I learned everything, and that furthered my career. And then I moved into Queens and different school district, but I'm excited to be here. So we're going to go on to our first question.
Well, before we go into our first question, we also want to, give you guys an understanding of what One World Fest does.
Okay.
Not only do we host this radio show once a month, every last Sunday of the month, we also go out and we educate and we really rally awareness for diversity, tolerance, and inclusion.
Absolutely.
Whether we're in schools or out of schools, or whether, we are dealing with it in the work field or we are dealing with it in our families, we are diverse people. We come from some diverse and some wealthy backgrounds, and we love to celebrate that. So although we are celebrating black makers, history makers, we also want to just open up today to just say thank you for everybody who's here. Thank you for your diverse background. We will get into that in some of the questioning. And again, all those people who are thinking about why we chose education and to look at the people in education, because that's where we are our first models, our first influencers are in education. So again, we thank you. So we're going to pass it back.
But not only that, just looking at our history and the history of black people in this country, the educators are the ones who help move the movement forward.
Yes.
If you
No
look
question.
at W.E.B. Du Bois, if you look at Ralph Bunche, if you look at Carter G. Woodson, and a lot of these people, they were educators who went on to apply what they knew about awareness and making our people aware of their history to help move the struggle forward, move our peoples forward as a people here in America. So this is why on this month we decided to bring in educators as well, because you guys, again, and speaking of nurturers, my mother was a school teacher, and me and my brothers had to walk to school with my mother every morning, so we got nurtured at home and in school.
Wow.
And trust me, we got nurtured in school the
on the
right way,
on the
and we
way
wasn't
there.
behaving correctly. So I will have a fondness for teachers in my school and in my life, and I hope to one day actually walk in the classrooms as a teacher myself. So I welcome you guys here this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll go back to show.
Yeah, so we just want to get into your background, your ethnic background. Where did you come from and how you grew up?
Okay, so good afternoon. First and foremost, I want to say it's an honor to be here this afternoon. I want to thank One World Fest for choosing me as a principal in Brooklyn to be featured on your radio show this afternoon, especially during Black History Month. So I am African American. My mother's from South Carolina. My father's from West Virginia. However, I am a native of Brooklyn, and I grew up in Brooklyn and Queens. And just being an African American, I'm very proud. I'm very proud to stand in front of my scholars every day so that they know that they too can be successful in life. So, whatever your ethnic background is, education is knowledge. So as long as you could pursue your education, you can become anything you want in this world.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And to you, Mr. Andrews, tell us a little bit about your background, your ethnic background, a little bit about your family that brings you.
So my ethnic background, Kamel, is my father is Jamaican and my mother is African American. My mother's family is from the South, from Virginia, deep south of Virginia, a little place called Cumberland County, which if you sneeze, you go right through. And my family, though, from my father's side, came in through Ellis Island as immigrants. And my great-grandfather was an Afro-Caribbean, and my great-grandmother was actually Jewish Caribbean. And they came in through Ellis Island, and unfortunately, when they came to America, they didn't stay very long. My great-grandfather created a Presbyterian church, founded a Presbyterian church which still exists in the Northeast, and they began to experience racism for the first time here in America when they came here. In the Caribbean, Jamaica, they didn't know that there was a difference. They knew that one was more fair-skinned than the other, but they didn't experience the racism that they experienced in America. When they got here and they realized that other people saw them as a light-skinned black male and a white woman, they began to see that maybe this wasn't for them, so they went back to Jamaica.
Wow.
But because of that, and because they had established citizenship, by the time my grandfather came over and brought my father, he was born here in America, so he was an American citizen and was able to bring the rest of his family over.
Wow, that's great. And that's what I love about this One World Fest Global. We get to hear the richness of people's stories and their
Yes.
family history. And it always just reminds me about how much we are alike. As much as we are different, we are alike. And but the differences are what make us unique. And those unique stories really give a lot of texture and fullness to life. And I love hearing those stories. Absolutely. Ms. Figueroa.
Okay, so I am Puerto Rican, 100% Puerto Rican.
All right.
I call myself a New York Rican. I am Brooklyn born and bred. Always went to school here in Brooklyn. So education really for me, my mother was a single parent. And so education was extremely important.
Absolutely.
And she did the very best she could as a single parent. But I must say that I was raised by the mothers in my community. And one of the things that they impressed upon me is really education. Going to school, even though, honestly, I hated school. I was not a school, sit in a class type of person, as
Right.
many of our students are not.
Okay.
But it was pushed on me, this is what you must do.
Okay.
I was the first person to go to college in my family. My mother did not know anything about the college process. In fact, my mother did not have a high school diploma. She told me when I was in 12th grade, we're going to graduate together. She got her GED the same year I graduated from high school.
That's beautiful.
So with her strength, I was able to pursue and move forward. So education, I agree, is the key to everything. Not just education in the home, being educated, socialized emotionally and all of that, but also in school, having those models that you can follow. So every day I walk through the doors, I'm not the parent, I am the auntie, I'm the teacher, I'm the
right.
whatever that
That's
child
right.
needs that day, that's who I am. And that's why I transform myself to be.
That's right.
That's amazing.
And we think, like Kamel said, we all have matching stories. So that's my matching story. My mom wasn't, she didn't have her high school diploma. I say I was raised by the village. I had my teachers. I was in gifted and talented. No one in the school would ever think I had so many issues at home because I was an A student and I was top 5 in the classroom. And I had teachers who took me to my auditions and took me to gave me jobs in the classroom as a tutor. And when the days get hard, that's what I resorted back to, tutoring, going back to the school. And I was telling Kamel and Shareem over the phone, and I was discussing how I actually became a theater instructor and became a vendor, a licensed vendor in the DOE and a tutor because of my teachers and my theater instructor that I had throughout school. And I did what was given to me. And and it wasn't from home. Nobody in my house really read. That was my diary. I used to hide. They say hide something in a book. Black people. You want to hide something from a black person, hide it in the book.
Put it in the book, right.
And
Put it in the
I used to use the empty pages in the book to write my diary entries, and no one in my house would find it because they didn't open the books. So just understanding that and having that in our community is very strong. And then I'll pass it to Shareem to go for the next question.
So I also, just to piggyback off of what you said, reading was very important.
Right.
And so now when we look around, the libraries are closing,
Yes.
which is very huge for me because as a foster parent, when I take children into the library and they never had a library card and there's not much, on the shelves, kids are so used to having today's kids that we are raising the computers and the iPads and so I'm like, no, we have to put that down. Yes, you can read on your iPad, but you have to pick up a book.
Yes.
You need to understand the importance of reading from a book and turning those
agree.
pages.
Yes.
Yeah, and reading was my resource. I love to read. I in 3rd grade, I won the school district. It was a contest on memorizing a whole book. And it was just amazing. And I had to go to the district and I had to recite the book out loud. That's how much I love to read. And it's amazing. So the next question I have is your role in the community. What difference do you think that you're going to make in the lives of the children, as well as not only children for you, but in the public eye and public view?
So for me, it's very important to have an impact on children's lives. And when I say impact, like Ms. Figueroa said, we can be that mother, that father, that guidance counselor, that referee, auntie, uncle when those children walk in the door. So we want to ensure that students receive a quality education each day. And it doesn't only come from academics. It also, they need that tender love as well. You know, a lot of our students, especially in my area, my school is a Title I school, so a lot of students may be in shelters. And we don't know what baggage they're coming in the door each day. So sometimes we have to take a step back and build relationships with children so that they know that we have their best interests for them. It's all about them becoming a productive citizen, you know. And for me, having an impact on children's lives, like, you don't know my glory until you hear my story. In 7th grade, I was my class president, and unfortunately, I went to Catholic school right in East New York, St. Rita's Catholic School, and I used to run track, and my right leg gave out on me. So I was out of school from April to June. I never went back, but I still was promoted because the academics was important to me. And I'm gonna fast forward a little bit. At age 22, I had a craniotomy. I had brain surgery. So I stand in front of you today with 3 degrees. Initially, I was going to school to be a criminal justice lawyer. And it was my destiny to be in education because somehow or another, God turned me into another path. And here I stand today as a proud principal of Brooklyn. So nothing's impossible. I tell students, don't tell me what you can't do. Tell me what you can do. So it's very important that we show children it's possible. Because if they don't see that possibility every day, then they're going to go a different route.
And I want to thank you for mentioning that as well, because outside of this and what I do inside of education, my nonprofit, Bless the Streets, we go to hospitals and I tutor and I read to children in the hospitals. Basically, mainly Bellevue Hospital, because I have a lot of students. One of the students that I mentor and tutor for the last 6 years, he has sickle cell anemia. And he was deanless, a student, but he would miss 80 days throughout the year in school because of his illness. Then I'll have other students, even my child who's asthmatic, and she would miss months out of school, and then she will fall back because some kids are not academic. They can't bounce back, and they are, threatened to be left back. And the schools don't really have nothing for students who are hospitalized and have to be hospitalized for long periods of time. And, I saw that. So, just mentioning that and thinking about that, I just brought back, because I haven't really been at the hospital for the last year. But I wish someone can actually pick it back up and really focus on the students who cannot come to school, and also help them get a school setting, or even those in the hospital.
So to your point, Principal Sandusky, how did you use those things that occurred as motivation for what you wanted to do? And how do you use those challenges to inspire you to get where you are today?
Well, it does start at the home, and it does take a village to raise a child. And education was very important in my household as well. My mother family didn't settle for less. So I was one of the first to graduate in my family from college as well. But just knowing the trials and tribulations that I went through, I made it possible. And I just see the possibility in every child that passes through my path. For me being a teacher for 10 years, assistant principal for 3, and now going into my 7th year as a principal, it's possible. So taking what I've gone through and knowing some of the trials and tribulations that my students go through, we can't give up on them, because if we give up on them, they don't have a chance. Somebody has to continue to encourage them and know that there's a bigger world out there, and there's a chance for you to be successful. College may not be for everyone, but we encourage them to go to college, and if college is not an option for you, then how are you pursuing a career? What tools and resources are we giving children to pursue that career? Like I said, at 22, I was going to John Jay College to get my bachelor's, and I had a dead stop where I had to stop school, have brain surgery, but I didn't give up. I turned around and I still went back. I finished and got that bachelor's degree, and later on pursued 2 master's degrees. So how am I being an example? I'm being a role model for those students that I stand in front of every day. Not only the students, but also the staff, the teachers.
Absolutely.
Knowing that if I can overcome these challenges and obstacles in life, anybody can.
Okay. Dr. Andrews, I want to ask you, as an adjunct professor at your college, as well as the head of student services, what are some of the challenges you're seeing students coming in from high school, New York City high schools, into the CUNY system that you're having to work with them, and what motivates you to make sure that they can get everything together and stay tight for what they need to do?
Well, probably the biggest challenge we see in college is that a lot of our students are not adept at reading, and they're certainly not adept at writing. So as college professors, we're thinking all the time, what are they teaching them K through 12? What are they doing? Is it continuous social promotion? Because we shouldn't be doing that, because then they're not prepared to go to college. So if 40% of our students, the black and brown males, are not graduating from high school, right, within 6 years, if approximately 33% of them are not graduating from college in 6 years, then you're looking at approximately, when it comes out to, approximately 60% of our black and brown kids are not graduating from high school or college.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
So what are we teaching them in these K through 12 years to get them prepared to go to college and to be successful in college? Because we're not doing what we need to do to prepare them to be successful in college, then we're not preparing them the right way. Because all the studies have shown that those who have a bachelor's degree actually earn a lot more than those who just have a high school diploma or less, right? So the key should be us preparing them to go to college and to be successful in college, not just to get into college, but to be successful. Some of the things that we're not doing K through 12, and I'll talk about that just a little bit, that I feel that we should be doing more, and I'll let my colleague maybe jump in and jump into this. We're not preparing our students to be successful in the STEM majors, right? So what we're doing now is we're trying to now go back a little bit and think about how in our black and brown schools and our minority schools, which are not as successful as the other schools, right, for whatever reason. We can talk about the lack of resources. We can talk about the lack of support.
Yes.
We can talk about the educators who they allowed to be in these schools who are not as committed as some of the, right, doing a disservice to us by having them in with our kids, right? We can talk about that a little bit. All of those are reasons, right? But the fastest growing professions in the world are STEM professions. You look at all the other countries and the focus they put on STEM, right?
Yes.
And so all of these kids are being brought in from outside of this country to take the jobs in this country, right? The immigration policies in America right now are set up in such a way that we're looking at the European countries and the Asian countries and even the Indian countries, and we're allowing them to come in and take the jobs at Microsoft and so on and so forth. The scholarships that Bill Gates is putting out are the ones that come from Microsoft. And, of course, the things that they're doing are detailed and dictated by the fact that they want those students in those countries because they say they're better prepared to be successful in our STEM world, right? But what about the students in the continent of Africa?
Right.
What about the other countries where we have predominantly black and brown young people that may be prepared to come into this country and have those jobs, right? Well, the immigration policy is set up right now, instruction in such a way that we don't have an open door policy for those kids from South America, from the African continent countries, those people from the Pan-African diaspora, whether they be Afro-Caribbean, African-American, Afro-Latino, they're not set up and established so that we're not allowing those kids to come in.
Absolutely.
So we're not doing anything that we need to do, not doing as much as we need to do here for the kids in this country to be prepared to be successful in STEM, and not allowing the immigration policies that are established in the Congress and in the Senate to be structured in such a way that we're actually inviting those people from the Pan-African diaspora to come into this country to be prepared to take some of those jobs, which some of those kids certainly are.
Absolutely.
And Dr. Andrews, to say that, the problem that we have now is really New York City statewide. I mean, this is a statewide thing, not only a citywide thing. Only 38% of New York City statewide students can read and do math on grade level. And so and this is public school, charter school, Montessori school, prep school, private school, the best schools to the worst schools, only 38%. And it's even less when we talk about reading, just reading in a whole. I think it goes down to 28% that can read on their level. So by the time we're talking about college, we're only dealing with really only 30% who actually get there. The majority are dropping out in junior high school.
Absolutely.
What's cool about that is you get these tech companies talking about coming into New York City because this is where they're expecting to get a more educated workforce of people who are able to actually take over some of those STEM jobs. But to your point, obviously, it's not really Is it the people that are here that they're looking for? Or is it people
No.
that are coming in from other countries? Even
Absolutely.
like you said with the immigration policy, I was surprised to hear you say that your forebears had come in through Ellis Island. You don't get to hear a lot of people say that because even then the immigration policies were stopping people from black and brown countries from coming in
Absolutely.
through Ellis Island, where they were open to people from the European
Absolutely.
countries and things of that nature. So I think you have a very interesting background and perspective on what you can bring to being a teacher and being an educator of our kids.
Thank you, Kamel.
Yeah, I want to pose a question for Jennifer.
Sure.
I know we got to get to our callers at some point because I work in the counseling profession that I do, alcohol and substance abuse counseling, right? And I went to a meeting the other day in my county. I live in Orange County, where I sat down to talk about a grant. They want to get grant funding because I run the adolescent track at my job. And we were talking about trying to get this grant because it's so many people, especially where I live at, that are ODing on heroin. It's a big thing in Orange County. We had like maybe 12 overdoses in the past, I want to say, week.
Wow.
And we are trying to figure out a way, how do we, because they do a lot of prevention, but they were talking about even opening up a recovery school. Right, so working in counseling, are you seeing in your district any type of preventative stages or anything that you guys are doing inside the school?
You know, what's funny is I honestly believe there can be more support in mental health for our young people. And a lot of times they focus on the adolescents. But what about those children in elementary school? We need to be able to focus on those topics at the lower level as well. You know, and be able to provide these preventive services. What you're referring to is preventive services.
Right.
And they don't necessarily need to come in the form of a drug abuse or drug awareness. They need to come in the form of social emotional learning.
Right.
And they need to be spoken to about conflict resolution, problem solving, decision making. And then we can also tie that into their academic growth. Because it's really all about them being introduced to things in positive ways. Yes, they need drug awareness, absolutely. But they also need other positive outlets as well.
Right.
So, you know, just being able to provide these supports in the school system, there are a lot of supports in DOE. We happen to have a wonderful agency in our school. But I really feel that we need more.
On a lower level, because you're talking
absolutely elementary
the middle
school.
school. You're talking starting elementary school.
Right. Absolutely.
And plus, when I was in school, we had the mediation system, and that's something that it's still there, but schools don't like impact it anymore. And it gave us like peer mediation. We actually had to go through training, and you know,
Called the Spark Program.
Well, now
Special
it's called,
Prevention and
now it's
Rehabilitation
called
through
the
Knowledge,
Spark,
right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So when I was coming up, it was the mediation program. It was held. We had the trainers downtown, and we was literally in school. And then we did the whole hallway. The captains in the hallways, and we were able, and it was the top students in the class, but we had to do the hallway patrol, and you know, we felt like we were a part of something, and we were, you know, somebody was fighting in the hallway and fighting, and we were the one that was
Peer
called.
Yes.
Yeah, the
Yes.
Yeah, and I don't see none of that going on in the school anymore.
But we have, it
We
in our
have peer
school.
mediation at our school.
How does that work? How does that look in your school? What
So,
form does it take?
Ms. Figueroa, our guidance counselor, trains a group of students
Okay.
on peer mediation, and after they go through their training,
Right.
they go out as conflict resolution students in case
Inside the school?
inside the school, if
Right.
a conflict comes up, an argument comes up, they intervene so that students know that their own student body is there to support them in case an issue arises.
And it's very important that we have that, because, you know, students are not going to open up to a lot of the adults.
That's good.
And they open up freely to one another. And then when it's a group and it's like, well, you know, like that really wasn't that serious. And it's like, it makes you think, yeah, it really
Right.
wasn't that serious.
And it's important that they hear it from their peers, you know, what's going on with this conflict. It can be something very simple, you know, and their peers help them to solve the problem.
Yes.
And it also gives them a sense of leadership and ownership in the school community. And so they know they're capable of resolving these conflicts easily. It's not a physical assault or anything along those lines. It's really a conversation. And using those skills to be able to have that conversation and resolve the conflict. And as adults, we all need those skills.
That's something
Yes.
the kids volunteer for?
Yes, they do. They sign up for it.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
That's great.
So just to piggyback off of Dr. Andrew when he talked about the different STEM opportunities.
Right.
When we think about other ethnic backgrounds, you know, again, I think about our black and brown children. We're quick, fast to suspend them. they end up in the judicial system sooner than other ethnic backgrounds, right? And now social media plays an important role, right? So when you just spoke about going to the library, how many of our kids are really opening up books and reading like they used to? You know, they're quick, fast to go on Instagram and Facebook to see the latest video or to see somebody what's happening in somebody's day faster than picking up a book to saying, how can this book educate me? And how is the system helping our ethnic students be successful as opposed to other ethnic backgrounds? Look at the resources that's available to other schools when you think about schools in Manhattan or schools on Long Island as opposed to the schools that's right here in Brooklyn and the Bronx.
Absolutely.
So that's just something that's a bigger entity than us. It has to do with a lot of our politicians fighting for more funding being funneled into the schools so that we can kind of stop what's happening at an early age, and by third grade that our students are doing better in reading and math. Because if things don't happen by that age, then they're
It's
on their
very
road to
hard.
be unsuccessful.
It's very hard.
And then that prison
Speaking of
pipeline is really
pipeline.
serious.
Right.
I'll go even further. I'm sorry, Ms. Figueroa. Please
No,
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. I just
Go
wanted
jump
to
in.
add on to Shareem and finish that question that you had. I think educating not only the students, but also parents as well, making them aware of what they should be looking for, how they can support their children. Because we oftentimes we think our elementary school third graders are not getting involved in drugs,
Oh,
or
they are.
not being exposed to drugs, or not even, social media is out there, it's in their face, and they're actively engaging in these things online. So
Absolutely.
educating parents on how they can be aware, that checklist is really important.
Yeah, we do. In the adolescent track that I run, I do family. Also, the parents do come in, but it's so hard. I mean, I'm in Orange County. I'm not in the city. I'm not in the 5 boroughs, so I don't know with what you guys offer here. But that's very important because parents do need the education as well.
Right.
So just to jump in what you were saying, and we don't talk about this, the importance of mentors enough, right?
Yes.
So there are some studies that have shown that those students, in fact, some recent studies have shown that those students who've had a Black or Latino teacher, if they're Black or Latino, as they were growing up, that took an interest in them, actually performed better in their studies
I agree.
through K through 12 and into college. A mentor is extremely important. Somebody they can identify with, somebody they can look up to, like both of you and Ms. Figueroa, to look up to, and they can remember this is a person who cared about me, who thought enough about me to tell me that I could be successful. The recent studies have shown that actually works. It works more effectively with our Black and brown kids than others. For whatever reason. So they're looking for role models. So we're not looking at just the resources, but we're looking at putting the educators in our classrooms that the kids can identify with. And the kids not only identify with them, but they also believe them when they say you can be successful, right?
Absolutely.
And we don't have enough educators who are STEM educators to do that either,
Exactly,
right?
yes.
Because we haven't put an emphasis on that. And part of my dissertation research talked about, and I did it, my dissertation surrounded the impact of leadership training on Black male STEM majors at a 4-year college. And so part of my dissertation research talked about the fact that those students who were propelled to be successful in STEM had a STEM professor, and it didn't even matter whether they were Black or Latino or whatever. They had a professor somewhere in college or K through 12 that told them you can be successful in this. And that was enough for them to believe that they could be successful. And they went on to be high achieving STEM majors in college, right? So our Black and brown kids just need to see some professors or some educators, some teachers who say, we believe in you and you can be successful. That tends to work for them better than anybody else. The other thing that works for them is the faith system. A lot of the students in college have been successful because they had a strong faith-based family, a church family, or their family believed in God and Christ, and they believed that if they could be successful, it was because they had a family that had faith and said, this is what you have to stand on.
Right.
Your faith-based principles are what you should rely on when times get tough, when times get difficult.
100%.
Yes.
That has worked more effectively with our Black and brown kids than most any other thing, including mentoring.
And I know we have some callers going in, but I also want to bring that to head where you said something about the actual teachers and administration being held accountable. I, with my nonprofit, have helped even with the working with politicians, help schools get awarded $7.9 million in grants through participatory funding or other grant services. And I actually go directly to the schools and educate principals about that. Now, one thing, I have helped schools get smart boards, smart tables, and the teachers did not know how to use them. I mean, we will only have one teacher on staff that would know. And then I will also go to the creator, the people who build the smart boards and tables, to come out and be willing to educate the teacher. And this is free. And I'm contacting them, can y'all come to school? And we have teachers who don't even show up. They wouldn't show up to have the training to actually run the smart boards. So I literally go into schools and see smart boards that's just put up in the corner and not being utilized. And then that's a slap in my face, because these are schools that I go to that I'm crying. I'm in front of the council members and assembly members to get money and get technology, or we getting laptops or tablets for each student. Like, you have a school body of 200, and I'm making sure every child has a tablet, but you guys are not even allowing the children to use the tablets because you don't have the teachers who can connect the tablets to the smart boards, and it's crazy. You know?
I'm a true believer of having technology in a building. Since I've been at New Heights Middle School as the principal, we received a grant for $272,000 from Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams. We also received $25,000 from Assemblywoman Richardson. And with that money, we're building a Mac lab that should be finished within the next month. Every classroom has a smart board. We have iPads, we have laptops, not for almost every child, but we're working on each child ensuring they have a laptop. My teachers do receive training on how to use the smart boards and technology. We have coding, we have robotics. So I'm a true believer that anything that's in other neighborhoods should be available to the neighborhoods of children in District 17 as well.
I'm with you.
But then that speaks to the fact, once again, that recent studies have also shown that in our predominantly minority school districts, we have the less experienced educators in those schools.
Yes. And that's what I was toning in on. And
So if the knowledge is not there because we have the less experienced educators, the more the master teachers are at these schools that are better performing, that are in the schools that are not predominantly minority, right? So you're working with less resources in terms of your teaching capability than some of the other school districts and some of the other schools. And that's a real problem. How do we not just attract those teachers, but how do we get the school district to let those teachers teach in those schools that we need them in, where we increase the attention that should be given to those black and brown kids that we have, that we're supposed to be serving, and that we have a certain inclination to believe can do well and be successful because we've been able to do it ourselves.
My teaching experience for my teachers ranges from 17 years down to first-year teachers. So I guess it is up to administration to seek out people who have experience and are able to bring that knowledge to students each day. Some of my most experienced teachers are tech savvy, and they want to learn and they want to grow. So it is left up to administration to recruit and find people that's going to be the perfect fit. You know, and you talked about, you know, master teachers being in certain buildings. They have to want to be able to want to transfer and work in those areas. So it's a two-way street. Okay.
Very, very interesting, and we are getting some calls in.
Yeah.
a lot of calls.
A lot of calls coming in, and I know y'all want to speak to us. We also have Mr. Keisha Breland, who's going to call in. She's a Black History maker. She's a CFO, a Black woman CFO of a major firm on Wall Street. We wanted to speak to her. She's going to be calling back, and I think I may have missed her call once or twice. Let's see if this is her. We want to open up the lines a little bit because a lot of people really want to talk to our panelists as well as give us some input. Good afternoon. How are you doing? Can you hear us?
To accept, press 1. To send a voicemail, press 2.
How to answer the call? Hello?
To accept, press 1. To send a voicemail, press 2.
What am I doing here? I don't know how that was supposed to work.
give it a second. And
Yeah,
call back.
well, that was
Well,
weird.
until they, call back. I also want. Do you also accept outside help as far as now the mayor has enacted wellness programs in community schools?
So I'm a community school, and we work with a great CBO, Center for Supportive Schools.
Okay.
And, you know, when you talked about mentoring, we have a peer group connection where our 8th graders take on our 6th grades as mentees. We also have achievement mentors where some of my educators volunteer to be a mentor to some students that are considered at risk, whether it's academically or behaviorally. And we have seen some great strides that students are making once they are connected to a mentor. So definitely having a CBO that's a good fit and a good match for your school does make a difference, because I do contribute some of the success of my school to working with the CBO and becoming a community school as well.
So I'm encouraging all educators, schools out there, that's right now, that's the way to go is for Title I funded schools to get extra resources and open it up so you can apply for other grants is to become a community school. Also, they have wellness programs opening up. They also offer fundings for your school. And these are the reason why we have these type of discussions on this radio show, because we have schools that don't know this. We have, because you're Brooklyn bred and you're from Brooklyn,
Yes.
we have principals and teachers who are coming out from Long Island, and they don't know the local politics. They don't know what's going on the inner city because they live outside of New York City. You know, they live on Long Island. Some of them coming from Jersey. You know, so what's going on inside and the resources that we have for our schools is not being shared. Are you connected?
Oh,
She's
we
in?
got a caller,
Okay.
yeah, and this is someone's been trying to call it. Hello? 1 second, I'm sorry.
Okay, now.
Hello, is this Miss Breland?
Yes, it is, Mr. Grant.
Oh, it's like we got like 3 or 4 people on the call. What's going on? Hello, Mr. Keisha Breland. How you doing this afternoon, sister?
I'm great. How are you?
Thank you for your repeated calls into the line. We have a very enlightening discussion going on today with our educators, of course.
I'm listening in. You know, I told you I was going to be listening in, and I will be calling in.
Yes. And thank you for calling, and thank you for continuing to call until you got me figuring this thing out, Jakeisha. Jakeisha Breland, as I said again, she's CFO of Bellwether Capital down on Wall Street. She's involved with a number of international organizations that take place there at the UN. She has an extensive background in finance and international finance. And I want you to tell us a little bit more about your background and what inspired you to get involved in finance.
Well, why I got involved in finance, my background, I grew up in East New York and Austin.
Okay.
I went to PS Public School to 60. I went to all public schools. I went to Isaac Buildersley in Canarsie, the junior high school. I went to East New York of Transit Technology
Okay.
for high school. When I was 11th grade, they had recruitment from Goldman Sachs, and when we had the affirmative action going on, so I was able to get into financing through the affirmative action bill.
Interesting.
Of course, the Democrats put that there, of course.
Okay.
But it also was a benefit for the original people as well.
Okay.
So my first financial firm I ever worked at was Goldman Sachs.
Okay.
Then I freelanced at a few other investment banking firms. I worked for Barclays, I worked UBS, I worked Credit Suisse, there's not a bank I have not worked for, to
Okay.
be honest.
Okay.
So, I also went to Virginia Tech.
Okay.
My degree is not in financing or banking. My degree is electrical engineering. I am an engineer by
Okay.
profession.
I find a lot of engineers have gotten into finance. Is it able to write those formulas? Those formulas y'all are able to write? Those algorithms that y'all are able to put together to
It's
apply
all
in the
that.
financial field?
It's being able to type up all those.
That's interesting.
But when I was at school, I went to school for engineering.
Okay.
And in high school, I did computer science. I also worked in the payroll department and medical records when I was in high school for the training opportunity program because, like I mentioned, I went to East New York of Transit Technology.
Right.
So in 10th grade, we would do the training opportunity program. So I was able to get, like I said, 25 years ago, I'm able to get the experience. And I've been in banking for that long because I did work as a plan examiner as well for just 2 years. And then after that, I went back into banking and I never went back into doing anything in the engineering field besides the civil engineering and building for my humanitarian projects across the globe.
Okay, I have Dr. Andrews is here with us. He has a question for you that he'd like to ask you.
So, Ms. Breland, you are what you are what we would call and consider a unicorn, a black woman in the STEM field. There are very few black women in the STEM fields, very few that go into the STEM majors and are not encouraged. Our black women are just not encouraged to be in the STEM fields or be STEM majors at all. You've been successful and graduated with a degree in engineering. So the question I have is because, one, we're not encouraging our blacks, especially our black women, to be in the STEM majors. And then second of all, many of them find it very difficult to be successful in the STEM majors because of discrimination. What was the reason that you decided not to pursue a career in engineering and that you decided to pursue a career in finance? Was it discrimination? Was it because you saw a glass ceiling that you couldn't break through? Was it because you weren't encouraged or you didn't have role models, someone to look at and say, well, I can do that or be that person? What was it that really kind of made you think, you know what, being an engineer is not going to be for me. I'm going to go into the finance field.
Okay, I can answer that question. Well, I know you're saying that because I couldn't hear you so clearly, or just because I have feedback in the background, because I am listening to the show.
Okay.
If you were asking me what made me go into becoming an engineer, like pursuing a degree in engineering.
He said, why did you decide to go into finance as opposed to continuing a career in engineering? What made you change over? Was it lack of opportunity or other things that you saw?
Okay, that was the question. Well, what happened is I did not change over. I did stay. My degree is in engineering.
Okay.
My degree is not in finance.
Right.
Now, I did never, and as I also stated, I continue to do engineering.
Okay.
I'm but on a full-time basis and a chief financial officer from a Wall Street firm though in the capital. I am still going to do an engineering because engineering is broad. I may not do fully of electrical, but the humanitarian projects I have going on is all based on the civil part of the engineering.
At what point did you change over to finance from engineering? And what inspired that? What inspired the change in professions?
It's not that I have not changed any profession.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying came out, and I did not change my profession. I'm still going to always be an engineer.
Okay.
Just because I'm a chief financial officer, I am in financing. I can't take that away.
Okay.
I'm always going to be an engineer.
Okay.
My profession and degree. I can't take my degree away as an engineer.
Okay.
And I'm still going at this. Anything I sign off on across the globe is not going to chief financial officer when I'm putting these humanitarian projects together and doing joint ventures on humanitarian. It's going to say signed off, Jakeisha Bree, engineer, Miss Jakeisha Breland.
Wow, okay.
It's not going to say, oh, the chief financial officer.
Okay, so you're still able to apply.
I think
Okay.
I think we have a real
Okay.
narrow view of what engineering is, and when people think of engineering, they're thinking building trains.
But I wanted to really, I'm sorry, I just wanted to just talk about education in terms of where we are with our children. I think engineering, when we talk about engineering, as you mentioned, exposure is really important for our children, which is why we do the college and career track that we're on. And we expose our children to different careers and majors in colleges and expose them to the opportunities that are available to them, whether it be a community college, a senior college, an HBCU, whatever it is they're looking for. because we know we want, whether even if it's a trade school, a culinary arts school, but giving them the opportunity to explore what these college opportunities are about. As I mentioned previously, I did not have that background, family background with college. However, being exposed to those opportunities pushed me into the direction of college, which thus pushed me to where I am today. So giving our 7th graders, our 6th graders, our 5th graders the opportunity to walk a campus and see that engineering is not something that's so far away.
Right.
It's something
Yeah.
that actually a non-traditional career is something that our young girls can get into. And they can actually do this to become that surgeon or whatever it is they're interested in.
Exactly.
You know, so really giving them the opportunity to expose them to these college experiences and let them know they can get into Harvard. You know, it sounds like it's so extreme and so far away, but it's really not.
Or
You know,
where
it's
they
just-
That's not.
engineering and they can take it into the finance world, or where they can use
Exactly.
technology, or because STEM is not just technology, it's science, it's tech, it's English,
Right.
math,
Absolutely.
it's a whole
Absolutely.
These
component.
transferable skills can be
Yeah,
used
so when
in
she's
so many
saying
different areas.
when she's saying finance, she's still in STEM
Right,
because
absolutely.
math is a big part of
Right,
STEM.
right.
So it's just this is just a term that just was introduced, and it's packaged a certain way, and it's just giving us a very vague view of all the opportunities that STEM has for our youth. But we are going to close off because we're about to end off on our hours. I want to get some more of background and hear some more from you. Well,
I actually want
yeah.
to find out what, let's go to Principal Sandusky.
Yes.
What do you expect the outcomes to be based upon your work? What are the outcomes you're looking for from your students based upon the work that you're doing?
So first and foremost, of course, we want them to graduate from middle school and transition into high school with some type of idea on what career path they would like to take. From there, we hope that we instill in them the skill sets that they need to be successful in high school and move on to college. If college is not that career path they're going to take, to look for a career that they're interested in. I know we talked about STEM a lot, but my school focuses on STEAM, which adds the
course.
art, right? And when you think about someone who's an architect, they got to be able to sketch out a building, right? And
That's
we've
what I studied.
invited
I have an
architects
associate's degree
into
in
our
architecture.
math classrooms so that they can see the connection.
Yes.
So, it's really, like Ms. Figueroa said, exposing children. A lot of time we think it's in the school building. No, sometimes we have to take them outside of the school
Experiential
building
learning.
so that they
Absolutely.
can see that there's a bigger world. What is this college campus about? I can see myself here pursuing a degree in whatever major they choose. So we are hoping, to have 100% of students graduate from middle school, pursue a college, the ultimate goal is to pursue a college career and become a successful citizen. Me being a teacher, I was a teacher at middle school 35, and I ran into one of my students in Lindenwood Diner, 24-year-old student. Right.
Reach out to Lindenwood Diner.
Big shout out. Big shout out, Cabell.
Oh, yeah.
What's the
Hey,
That's the spot right
if you
there.
don't know Lindenwood Diner, I don't know.
For sure.
And it's priceless when you see a former student
You're running
that's
to the community.
24 years
Right.
old saying, this is what I'm doing now, Miss Sandusky. I'm into the technology business, pursuing a career in music, whatever they decide to do.
Right.
It's priceless when you touch that child's life, right?
Absolutely.
So you can't put a price on the impact that we have on some of these children.
That's true. That's true. I've walked with my mother. Sometime I've been on Jamaica Avenue, walk with my mother down the street, and I get some cat looking at us. I'm like, oh man, is our street career coming back to haunt me or whatever? But just the days, And then she'll come up and hug my mom and say, "Hey, Miss Ellison." I'm like, "You know this dude?" And they just talk about the impact that she had on them as a teacher, and I get to see that and act out with my mother, and it's really great to know the impact that teachers have. on
And that's the
people's lives.
reward, I
It
can
is
say
the
that too.
reward.
Absolutely,
I was
absolutely.
just teaching with one of my students. He would text me all last night and like, go to bed, Then I had him back this morning because I, was kind of rude to him because I told him it was too late to be texting me 10 at night. But he was just telling me, he plays the drums and he was on Apollo, and he was letting me know that he's keeping up with schoolwork and I ain't got to call his mother until.
And you said it earlier. When you think about every career, a teacher has is instrumental in these career paths that our children take. When you think about it, right?
Absolutely.
We have
All
these
the time.
basketball and football players
And they think
that's
teachers.
making all this money. However, they still had to go through school, and there was a teacher that touched their life for them to be successful. So, you
I
know.
want to thank all you for touching
Oh, we don't-
our lives, because don't we have...
No, we got a couple of minutes.
We got a couple of minutes?
to go.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
We
I'm
started
about to
a
kick
little-
you guys
we started
away.
a
You're
little
gonna
late.
go
Yeah, I still got a little bit I want to go. We started a little late, but we're good though.
Let me
Dr.
piggyback on that.
Let me go to you. Yeah.
Let me
Please, sir.
piggyback on that because, so I get an email, just quick story. I get an email not too long ago from I couldn't believe it, from my Head Start teacher.
Wow.
She sent me an email and she said, I see all the wonderful things you're doing in the community as an elected official, as Dr. Andrews. She said, I want you to come to a nonprofit that I'm working with. We do a lot of good things in the community, providing food to the food pantry. We do social services. And I want you to come and meet the people who are running this program and to see if you can do anything to help them. So I went out. I hadn't seen her in, I don't know, well, we're not going to go into how many years. But my Head Start teacher, she was, one, surprised that I remembered her at all, of course. And I said, when I got there, I said, you haven't changed. You look the same. She said, you haven't changed. She said, I see you on social media. I see everything that you're doing. You're doing some incredible things. And I said, I want you to know that even in the newspapers, I've spoken about you being the person who inspired me the most, that you were the foundation of my educational career. What happened with me in Head Start with you propelled me to the things that I'm doing now. I couldn't have thought about somebody being an educator. I wouldn't have thought about being a teacher, except for being in your class and seeing what a wonderful teacher you were. Mrs. Silverstein. Big shout out to Miss Silverstein today.
And that's the same thing for me. I said I started in my career path was criminal justice. And there's 3 mentors that I have to mention today
Please
that
do.
definitely put me on the right career path. I met a principal in Harlem, Annette Knox. I want to thank her for pushing me into the classroom to start.
Wow.
Tracy Collins was also very instrumental in ensuring that I stayed on this education path. And she was my assistant principal first, and she had a lot of faith in me and pushed me really hard. Jackie Charles Marcus, I thank her, and I'm still in touch with each and every one of them today.
That's great.
So it's
That's beautiful.
always that 1 or 2 people that inspire you to be successful.
Absolutely.
So, Dr. Andrews, let's go to you with that same question. What are some of the expected outcomes you've seen that you like to see from your work in York College and in the community? Because you hold a number of different hats. Just tell us about some of the outcomes you're working on.
So real quick, so I'm opening up a new center this spring at York College, the Center for Leadership, Service, and Civic Engagement. Because we're trying to get our students interested in all 3 of those things, right? One, in my dissertation research, it showed that there's a serious impact that can be made on students with the advent of leadership training in college. Teaching our young people to be leaders in society is something that can help propel them in college, after college, in graduate school, law school, med school, so on and so forth, even in their careers, right? How many people wouldn't want to bring you into their school if you're graduate school, med school, law school, so on and so forth, if you already had leadership training, you were already prepared to be a leader?
Right.
How many corporations or agencies wouldn't want to hire somebody who's already been trained to be a leader without having to provide that training for them, right?
Absolutely.
So leadership is a really important component that we don't focus on. There are not many studies written about the impact of leadership training on our Black and brown kids. So that's key for me. Not just training them to be student leaders, but training them to be leaders in society, right?
Absolutely.
Global citizens, as you talked about, right? And then civic engagement. We don't get our students involved with civics anymore. Civics are not taught in classroom anymore, right? We don't have civic courses
Very
anymore,
important,
right?
too. Very important.
So in order to be able to make an impact in society, we've got to be able to teach them about the importance of being involved civically, being civically engaged in their own respective communities outside of the college, right? And then the last part,
responsibility.
exactly, right, taking responsibility, getting involved with politics, whether you think you like politics or not, the whole world revolves around politics, right?
And all politics are local.
And all politics are
That's where
local.
you can have the most impact.
There you go, Kamel.
Right.
That's my 2 cents. I'm sorry.
There you go. There you go.
Wait. We
There you
have
go.
a special election.
Oh, yes.
February 26th.
Absolutely
very
right.
Important. So that's very important to touch on before we even close out the show.
Absolutely.
We're not closing yet. We ain't running them out.
Okay, we need to.
Finish your point, Dr.
Go ahead.
Absolutely.
Finish your point.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. And then service, of course. You know, so my motto for the organization is that I'm a faculty advisor for the Student Government Association and the York College chapter of the National Society of Leadership and Success. And my focus for them is service. right? Networking is extremely huge, right? I teach them
Yes,
about
it is.
the value of networking, right? It's not just what you know, it's who you know,
you
right?
know.
And in addition to that, service, because I believe and I teach them all, those who serve may also one day lead.
That's right.
Absolutely.
So those are components, and those are things that I want them to take away from their college educational experience with me. Experiential learning, as you talked about, Ms. Figueroa, the stuff that we do outside of the college setting is just as important to make them well-rounded global citizens when they leave college.
That's
Right.
right.
Good stuff.
Okay, Ms. Figueroa, going to you as a guidance counselor. You have a very
School
as a
counselor.
school counselor. You have a very specific role in the school. And tell us about some of the outcomes you like to see with the kids that you come in direct contact with there.
Well, you know what it is, for me personally, every small accomplishment is fantastic for me. That's what I look for. If I have that child that just doesn't want to come in the school building for whatever reason, and we
Right.
finally get them in for a week straight, I'm happy.
Okay.
We've done something there. If we
Small
have a
steps.
child who at a level 1 couldn't read or is having difficulty with certain
Right.
fundamentals, and we get that child to a 2 or a 3, that's a success story. If we
Absolutely.
have a child who has been suspended several times, but he's learning some conflict resolution skills, or she is learning some conflict resolution skills, that's a success story for me. You know, so I look for those small areas, not a tremendous. It's wonderful to have the tremendous. However, I look for those small success stories every day. You know, if I have that child that can connect to someone, as we talked about in the school building,
Right.
that's an amazing accomplishment right there.
Right.
And we were also talking about something new, like the STEAM program, and I've been spending the last 5 years developing the eSTEAM program, because again, I deal with students who have various learning disabilities, dyslexia, IEPs, and how do we get them to be able to sit in STEM, or sit and be able to take these classes and pass these tests. Where my daughter, who has an IEP, she's a junior, she's 16, she has 6 regents. It was I'm not going to say it was the easiest. It was a struggle to get her to still be an AB student and still be on the same level, but also understanding that the resources weren't there for students with IEPs, students with various learning disabilities and dyslexia and ADHDs. So what are we going to do as a community to make sure that these students get the resources we need when we know that the schools don't have it?
And that's
And I want to say, teamwork makes the dream work.
Absolutely.
Because I
Yeah.
definitely have to give accolades to my staff, New Heights Middle School. They are a hardworking team.
Fantastic team.
I have teachers that go above and beyond, DonorsChoose.org, and we've received several resources from Lego robotics kits to drones. You know, just really putting that extra mile in to ensure that those students receive any and everything possible each and every day they walk into the door. You know, just taking time out outside of the hours that they are supposed to contractually be at work and going above and beyond to take students to the STEM program at Mega Everett on a Saturday. It makes a difference. So the team that works with me, because I'm not going to say for me, because we work together collaboratively, I have to acknowledge them as well.
That's very important. Definitely. Ms. Breland, are you still with us? Do we lose Ms. Breland? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, Ms. Breland, thank you for holding. Thank you for your patience in holding. I know it's also that you've been offering some training classes recently in finance. Can you tell us a little bit about the training classes that you've been offering and what you're hoping to see, what type of outcomes you're hoping to make there?
Oh, absolutely. I do offer training classes. I offer training classes. I like to enlighten everyone on the Forex market. So I do training on Forex market as far as the currency and dealing with a global currency reset, which is not announced in the media because we already know how the oligarchs are and our, like I said, each Congress person, we already know they received $250,000 from the big pharmaceutical companies. So a lot of things are not out there to the regular ones. But when you are part of an agenda, this is information that they are going to keep away from so many people. So I do offer those type of classes, and I enlighten everyone what is going on in the financial world, dealing with currency, dealing with a global currency reset, a devaluation of currencies that are sold at our local banks like TD Bank, where you can basically go and purchase Vietnamese dong and fund your own projects. I have never, ever gotten a grant for any project. Every project I do, I fund on my own. buy every humanitarian project I fund on my own. How I fund on my own is by monetization and trade platforms. These trade platforms and monetization programs are real. It's just that everybody are not going to get invited in. Absolutely not. But that's since I've been in financing and banking and working at these kleptocratic banks. When I worked for Barclays, I was a KYC analyst. I was a AML analyst, anti-money laundering analyst. So I saw how these platforms work because I'm the one that had to put a lot of the KYCs and the contracts together and then it have to be reviewed by the attorney. And the attorney was, okay, final, okay, or conditions to close. That's how banking works. So you know, okay, this person is set up for a 40-week trade. So that's what pushed me to say, oh no, this is not going to work. I should not be here making 100 and something thousand, but I'm making people $18 billion in a year. I'm not happy with that. That's just me. So that's the reason I went and right. I had to say no. And after 2008, when we had that economy collapse, I said, no, I would never go out there and be an employee again for no banking system. These banking systems are worth trillions of dollars. So I knew not to even go there. I said, no, I would do my own humanitarian project. I will be a mandate. Now, as a chief financial officer and teaming up with an original person like I am, that's different. But would I ever work back for a bank? Absolutely not.
Okay.
Because I do everything on my own.
So basically, what you're teaching children is how to know their own value, how to know their
own value,
to work in a system or to be a part of a system or to actually own your own, so that you can actually make the calls on which direction you want to take with your own company. You have to know your value in order to be able.
Not hard. Have your money work for you. Stop investing in the consumer debt at your job. But a lot of people are not educated, so they don't understand that there are 770 accounts. 770 accounts is non-interest accounts. You don't pay interest on these 770 accounts. These are life expansion accounts. But, you're not going to know about that. They want you to invest in 401k where you're going to be taxed on. They want you borrow, you're going to be paying for. So I educate on that because this information is out there, but it's not going to be out there to the city jobs, the municipalities. It's not there because it's all set up in a kleptocratic system to keep everyone deaf, dumb, and blind. And that's a fact.
That is
Okay.
right.
Well,
And can you
thank
listen?
for that.
Can we take my class?
Yes.
Hold on. With education and with finance, we get to move ourselves forward as a people. That is
Exactly.
bringing you all here on our show today, educators, people who know about money, because then when you know better, you do better. Okay? So,
You're right. We have to.
and we're having a countdown on our way out of here today, but I want to thank all of our guests for coming on today and
Thank you for having
making
me.
history. Black history.
Thank
Today, you all are Black history makers, as well as yourself, Ms. Breland. My guest, Ms. Fateria Jones, Ms. Sha Braxton. It's been great to be on with you all today. You've been given a wealth of information and knowledge. I want you guys to tell people where they can find you, just in case they want to come around and maybe ask more questions. We had a lot of callers. Unfortunately, we couldn't get to today. I'm very sorry about that. It's been a heck of a platform that we're today. So I want to go ahead and let you guys tell us where you can find it. I want to thank Ms. Breland, who, by the way, is on the board of directors for One World Fest Global. So
Right. They can find me on there.
we just invited Dr. Andrews to be on the board of directors for One World Fest Global as well, and I humbly accepted. He's accepted. I'm glad that
No question.
He has. We'll be
Looking
working
forward to it.
with him shortly. And Principal Sandusky, who will be going back into New Heights Middle School, who invited us in to do a very great project with Ms. Figueroa, and we were very humbled to be there. So thank you. We'll continue this relationship with you guys, with our listeners. They'll be back. This is Dr. Andrews' second time
No question.
on the program. They'll be back, and we'll continue our relationship with all of these great people. But first, I want you guys to tell people where they can find you, just in case they want to look y'all up and maybe ask some more questions directly.
Sure. Ativia Sandusky. My email address is ASANDUSKY @newheights newheightsms.org.
Thank you, Dr. Andrews.
So you can reach me at www.andrewsforprogress.com. That's Andrews number 4 progress. I'm sorry. No, that's not up yet. So that's my website, which is not quite finished yet. So it's not up yet. So you can reach me by email. andrewsforprogress@gmail.com.
Okay.
And I'm also on Facebook, Instagram Executive Leader 1, and Facebook Anthony D. Andrews Jr.
Okay, great. And speaking of the special election that's coming up, what are you looking at there? Do you have any recommendations for us? Yeah, we'll let you go ahead and give an endorsement if you like.
So I didn't make an endorsement in this election at
Okay.
all. I have a number of candidates that I like in this race. But I can say that the young brother, Jamani Williams, has made a lot of progress in my community.
Okay.
A lot of my constituents are strongly behind him,
Okay.
and they think very highly. I think very highly of the brother. I think he's done
I think very highly of Jamani Williams as well.
an excellent
I
job.
do
in what
too.
he's done. So, although I have not made an endorsement, I like what the brother is doing. We come from the same place. Theoretically, hard streets, as you know, Canal.
Right.
I grew up in the hard streets of South Jamaica,
South Jamaica.
on Suffern Boulevard.
That's
Big
right.
shout out to everybody out there, including my good friends and family, Furtado Brothers.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's our friend, Ms. Figueroa.
So
Where
I
can we
can
find
be
you?
I can be reached at jfigueroa-canty, that's C as in cat, A-N-T as in Tom, E-Y, at newheightsmiddleschool.org.
Okay.
And I also want to say you can follow us on Twitter at New Heights. Our Twitter handle, my Twitter handle is Ativia Sandusky also. So we are on Twitter and Instagram.
Oh, don't let Donald Trump hear that. After what we said today, you may be getting some tweets, girl.
Well, I want to thank again my co-host, Ms. Shaw Brax, Ms. Nefertaria Jones, and all of you great listeners out there. Of course, my production partners here, We Say with the Kent Studios, and all of y'all for listening and plugging in. Have a great Sunday. Enjoy the rest of your day. We'll see you back here.
Y'all can follow me on at the S.
Hold on,
Braxton
get it in,
Show.
Shaw. Get it in, Shaw.
S. Braxton Show. I am part of the management team for social media for One World Fest Global, and we are doing beautiful things. So you can also follow
Yes, ma'am.
us on One World Fest Global.
Yeah, it takes a team.
Yeah, it takes
Trust
a
me,
team.
working with me, it takes a team. I got some great people around me. I'm humbled to have them around me. Thanks again. Y'all will see us here the last Sunday of every month from 1 to 2 at WeSayWhatTheyCan't.com. We continue to live stream there every month. Join us. Thank you for coming out.
Thank
Sunday.
Thank you.
for having us.
You guys have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you, too.
guys.